We have a sourcing team. We have a recruiting coordinator team. Clari has a really locked down interview process to keep things like efficient, straightforward. All have a similar approach in that we really want to connect with a candidate and really, I like to see what their motivation is, why they're making the choices they are. Conversation with the hiring manager to meet your manager right off the bat. And then usually there's a panel of interviewers. Some have an exercise or something to complete, or writing samples to submit, or something like that.
Good morning. So today I have Jill with us, who's a senior recruiter at a fast-growing company. She's all about diversity and inclusion. So let's welcome Jill on 10 Minutes of Hiring Wisdom, where she will tell us about where she works, what she's learned along the way, and how we can learn from the things that are going on during the Great Resignation period. Hi, Jill. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm well. Good morning.
So, Jill, can you tell us about, from a recruiter's perspective, how has the Great Resignation changed the way the market operates?
Uh, well, I know I have a lot of conversations with people about the different reasons they might be looking to make a change. I also have to coach hiring managers to look at the last 2 years of job changes, or what looks like job hopping, and reconsider what might have been happening in somebody's life and why they might be making the choices that they're making, either stepping back from a seniority perspective or trying to change their industry. So.
Okay. And when you mentioned that you train hiring managers, how do you make sure that they're equipped to understand that in the last 2 years, the things that might have happened might have been due to personal reasons and stuff like that? Just curious.
Well, most often when I'm trying to calibrate with a new hiring manager, I sit down and go through resumes with them virtually now. But we share a screen, we drive through resumes. I have them talk to me about what they're seeing, what they like, what they don't like. And, a lot of times they'll say things like, well, this person was at a number of different places, or I don't know why this person would want this job. It seems like a step back. And, especially in the last 2 years, I've had to say, well, you have no idea what's been going on in their life. They may need to ratchet down a gear. They may need to take care of people at home. And it doesn't mean that they won't be a hard worker if they need to just change their priorities. And again, people had to make all kinds of decisions in the last 2 years that might have led, and companies were closing and things were happening that might have led to short stints.
Okay, I love the human approach that you take, because I think a lot of recruiters usually are like, oh, what they see on paper is something that they would take face value at, when there's a lot of things that go behind the paper that a lot of us don't really account for. So I'm glad that recruiters like you still exist. So thank you so much for sharing that, Jill. My next question for you, Jill, would be: can you tell us about where you work, what your role is within the company?
Yeah, I work for a company named Clari. They're sort of revenue operations, software as a service. I've been there for 10 months. I'm a senior recruiter. I'm working on technical and non technical roles. Um, and I think, I found myself there because of someone I had worked with prior. And
Okay.
for networks.
Networking is very important. We've seen this going on right now. And I was doing research on your company, Jill, and I saw that your company currently has over 250 plus openings. So can you tell us about how you managed to find the right talent for those specific roles?
Yes, and some of those, the count of the openings, we post things in multiple locations. So while it may look like it's 5 openings, it might actually just be one. So I'm not entirely sure on the number. And I'm sorry, what was the specific question?
The question, I'm sorry, I should have been much more clear. It was that because you have so many openings currently, a lot of companies are hiring. How do you attract the best talent towards your company specifically?
Well, we have a really solid recruiting team. And we have people who specialize, there's sort of people who specialize on the technical side. I mean, engineering hiring is very, very difficult. We have people who specialize in sales. Um, I'm sort of a weird person in that I kind of go across a lot of those. We have a sourcing team. We have a recruiting coordinator team. Clary has a really locked down interview process to keep things like efficient, straightforward, um, keep people from having to interview with 14 team members, really just like get the key stakeholders who can make a decision and move quickly.
Okay, can you maybe touch a little more on the hiring process? How does the hiring process work for your company?
Yeah, I mean, it's fairly standard. it varies a little bit from team to team. The engineering side is a little bit different. Generally, it's always recruiter screen first. And I think that we all have a similar approach in that we really want to connect with a candidate and really, I mean, I like to see what their motivation is, why they're making the choices they are. Conversation with the hiring manager to meet your manager right off the bat. And then usually there's a panel of interviewers. Some have an exercise or something to complete or writing samples to submit or something like that. Sometimes I try to avoid those because they tend to make the interview process a little clunky, but then some managers feel like they really need to see some concrete work in order to be able to make a decision. Um,
No, no, that
yeah.
does sound efficient.
Oh no,
Sorry,
I
you
mean,
were
and
saying
then at
something?
that point, we go as quickly as we can to offer. Um, and it's an interesting thing because sometimes hiring is this is particular to this environment is that sometimes hiring managers want a batch process. They're like, well, we want to send the final round of 6 people, so we want to wait until they've all completed to the end and then send them through. And that's a nice idea, but the market is moving far too quickly. And by the time you get to all of those people being ready to send to the next interviewer, you've lost 3 of them already. Um,
That is very true. That is very true. I think it's been interesting because we've been working with clients and everything. By the time they get back to us an offer, the candidate has already accepted an offer with another client, and they're just like, "Oh, is that candidate still interested?" And we're just like, "He just accepted an offer in the morning. Things should have been faster." But it's definitely interesting to see how times are changing and how it's a candidate market as opposed to an
for
employer
sure.
market these days. So that's definitely really eye opening for a lot of companies out there. My next question for you, Jill, would be, because you've been in this recruitment space for quite a while and everything, what are some of the challenges that a lot of companies are facing when hiring the right talent these days, according to your perspective?
Challenges. Well, I think that switch to the candidate market has challenged some hiring managers who used to be able to hold out for the perfect shiny unicorn, which I think it's good that we're shifting away from that because the thing is, like, yes, maybe there is that one person who is the height of perfection, but there's probably 20 other people who could do the job perfectly well and are, just normal humans who need a job, who can do a job, and can also learn. And so I think that, advising hiring managers not to keep it's almost like the dating thing, just keep serial dating until you find that some a vision of perfect. It's like, well, if you can find someone you get along with and they can do that you make it work.
That's true. I think it's just human nature to always want something better and hoping that something better might come along. But then again, if you have something that makes you happy at the end of the day, if you have something that might, a person that might do the job fairly well, why look for someone better? You gotta improvise, right? So I can definitely see why and how you mentioned and made that correlation between dating and finding the right talent, which is interesting when you put it that way. So thank you for sharing that. Last question, Jill, would be, can you tell us about some of the openings that your company might have so that if people are seeking jobs and everything, they know what to and where to apply
Yeah,
for?
absolutely. I mean, we have probably run the gamut when it comes to all engineering positions. There are a lot of roles in sales. I have a lot of marketing. What's the one that I'm looking for? I'm looking for product marketing managers. I'm looking for a financial analyst. Um, yeah, I mean, and I'm happy to connect people with any of the other roles. There's a lot.
Okay, perfect. Well, Jill, we like to keep things short. It was an absolute pleasure learning about you, your wonderful journey, how and what you've learned along the way, especially during the great resignation period, and how your company continues to grow and finds talent by deploying a very solid recruitment process. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming on
thank
the
you.
show
Have a
today.
great rest of your day.